This is the first screen on the press. I want to go through just basically what screen 1 is, and then talk a lot more about screen 2. The top item is ready. When we push F1, you see that it gets dark, and it stays dark for 5 to 8 seconds. F2 is manual knockout. That just causes the knockouts to fire every time you hit it. F3 is stacker reset. If you have a stacker, that's how you reset it to start the next stack. And then manual stack, it has auto or manual. Reverse feed just reverses the direction of the rollers. F6 is the index button. Whenever you hit F6, the unit will take a feed. F7 is the .01 and run button. F8 turns the knockouts on and off. F9 is reverse sequence, and what that means is our normal sequence is that it will feed and then punch, and reverse sequence just means that it's going to punch and then feed. Note, if you're running in manual and not in automatic, in this mode it will take up where it left off. So if it was ready for the next feed, it will take that feed. And F10 is your batch. You dial in what you want on a different screen for total parts or a box, whatever you want. And when you reach that point, you can restart the machine after you hit F10. Over on the right, this is your batch count. You notice down here, if you can read it, it says run. If the machine is stopped, it will tell you why it stopped. We're set in auto now. If we wanted to change that, we push the arrow key, the left arrow key, and then right arrow key, we can go up to single, down to manual, or leave it where it's at in auto. Okay, now going back up to the top screen, this is the main run screen. The next screen down is the feed stroke batch screen. And F1 is your stroke setting. Your stroke setting is calibrated in time. Basically, you need to set that to be a time that is enough time for the die to clear the material. After that point, there's really no reason to have it longer than that if the die is set up properly. If you want to see the parts cut, you can certainly run it up a lot higher. That will cost you a lot of parts per day. If you have to run it higher because you're having trouble getting the die out of the material, it's wanting to follow it up, then your setup job really isn't done. You either need to be doing some more rubbering or you need to work on your taping. It should be able to go in and out smoothly, and then you can run the shorter stroke. The only exception to this is some materials do require some recovery time. The force, F2, is calibrated in tonnage. This is a 40-ton machine. It will run anywhere from, well, actually 0 to 40, but it really doesn't run well below 1/4 of full pressure. None of the hydraulic machines really do so. It's hard to control the ram when you get down that far. It takes as much pressure to bring the ram down as what you're going to hit with. So 1/4 of 40 tons is really the best place to run. Batch stop, F3, is we got it set for 10. That tells it to stop after 10 hits. So you dial in there whatever you want. Batch stop, F4 is turned off. and then you also have F6 for index and F7 for .01. Next screen is stacker strip. Oops, wait a minute, I missed some on this one. Let's go back. F5 is the distance. F5, we dialed in 10 inches. It may feed slightly more, slightly less, mainly depending on how tight you have your roller squeezed. The main thing is that it should be set that it is repeatable. So if you have a 10-inch part, you may actually want to dial in something less depending on how your rollers are set. Base speed is the speed that the motors start turning. That's F8. And from the base speed, the rollers ramp up to the top speed, ramp back down to the base speed, and then stop. If the base speed is too high, then your material will jump as it starts out, and you won't have a smooth flow. You basically want your speed setting such that you're as fast as you can set things so that it will smoothly run into the machine. If your material's jumping up and down on the outside of the machine, you need to speed something up or slow the machine down. Max speed is the full speed that the rollers will hit. All these numbers are pretty arbitrary. They have meaning, but some of them are in steps per second, some of them are in steps per second squared. But to us, it's just kind of an arbitrary number. You'll find through trial and error which numbers work best. The other important one, the base speed and max, once you're set, probably won't ever change it again. F10 is the accel and decel. That is how fast does it get from the base speed to the top speed. This particular system has a servo. You probably cannot set this for a feed that it won't do. I may be wrong on that, but if it exceeds what the motor is capable of, it will fault the system. So you'll have to power down and restart it to reset the servos. Stepper systems, on the other hand, if you ask too much of them, they'll just stall and go to the next speed and continue to stall until you correct the problem. So it's much more limiting with the stepper. Back to accel and decel, that goes back again to, is your material flopping up and down in your rails while it's feeding into the machine. If you look at your loop, if it's jumping, then you're really running it faster than you should.